let's go ahead and go over on the board first off what we're going to be doing tonight on the whiteboard here. Okay, first thing is restore photos was the last assignment actually that I had you do basically. Restoring an old photo, blemishes, restoring an old photo that was maybe cracked a little bit and restoring it to make it better, and having a before and after photo. Is that correct? That was the last one we actually did together. And one of the first things we're going to do tonight is I'm going to have you email me in a location in just a second, a before and after photo. If you don't have them with you tonight, you can do it between now and Sunday, that's fine, but I'll show you how to do that in just a second. I'll give you an email address and you'll basically attach both the before and after photo, and we'll look at those together in just a second. Pano discussions, the next one we'll do, we're going to discuss how to do panoramic photography, and we'll look at multiple examples on the overhead, show you how to do it with your camera. And then the Pano take home, between now and next Tuesday, you'll finish up a panoramic photo session, 2 to 3 photo sessions where you'll basically have 2 or 3 examples of a panoramic photography. You'll bring it into class. You'll do what's called stitching those photos together to make a nice panoramic image using free software online actually. I'll show you how to use that. And then before we leave tonight, you'll notice up here on the board there's a whole bunch of folders leaned up against the board here, and you hear music in the overhead you never hear before. That's actually the DVD you're going to watch at the end. That's one of the final presentations of one of the students, I believe 2 semesters ago. I'm going to show that one of his final project that he did. And then before you leave, after we watch the DVD video presentation, you're going to come up and look at all the portfolios that are up here on the board, because you'll be doing a portfolio here in just a few weeks. And so before we get started, I thought it'd be good to look at where we're at and where we're going before we get started with anything. So I did put, if you look on the overhead, I did label this week we're going to be covering Pano, week 9, but week 10 next week we're covering macro photography. When we meet next week, at the beginning of the class, we will be stitching together your panoramic images, and I'll be collecting those from you. And those will also be put on a website. We're going to start actually using this week, week 9, my Foki website, to where you can begin posting projects. You'll post starting with the restore photos project you've already done. That'll be the first one. The second one's going to be the panoramic project. Then your portrait project, which is week 12. Well, I skipped one here, but week 10 is next week, macro, that's close-up photography. Week after that, it's lighting. I'll bring in my lights. You guys will learn how to use lighting with your cameras. Week 12, which is only, 3 weeks away, that night you need to plan on bringing a friend or family or coworker with you to take a portrait, take portraits. We're going to be meeting in the middle of the building here on 141, 142, and you guys, I'll bring my lights in. We'll have a few backdrops in there, and I'll bring snacks, and you'll basically be taking portrait photography in real time and real life. And so be inviting your family and friends. You can have pets come as well. Children can come. We usually have pets every semester. Last semester we had a bird, we had a rat, we had I don't know what else, I think those are the 2 I remember. The semester before that we had a dog that was a retired care dog. That's not the correct term, but they would go in and go into nursing homes and go into people that were sick and just sit with them. That's what he did for years. And so he let everybody take their picture. He just kind of laid there, it was like, whatever. He was really good. In fact, he was better than all the people and all the kids combined. So he loved getting pictures taken. And so yeah, you can bring, they can bring pets, children. Now just so you know, we will be, with the kids, we'll be taking their shots first, their pictures first, to get them done and over with so they can go on, because we start at 7:25, so for a lot of them that's near bedtime, and so we'll get their photos taken first. And so if you are the one bringing the children, you'll get your photos out of the way and get them taken, and then you can go ahead and leave. Now, if you don't have anyone that you're bringing for that portrait photography session, you'll have plenty of opportunity to take pictures of others that are going to be coming. And so the reason I say that is if you're bringing people for yourself, for your family, you'll for sure want to take their pictures, but you need to make sure and allow others in the class to take their pictures as well, since it is a learning opportunity for them. And so that's just a few weeks away, so you can make invitations, whatever you want to do, email, Facebook, however you want to do it, to get people invited. I really like to pack it out. We usually do have a pretty good crowd. Even with a smaller class like ours, it's going to be easy to get 15, 20 people in there outside of our class for a portrait session, because it's, number one, free. Number two, they know they're helping you learn how to do photography. And so we can easily get, with this size of class, even 20 people easy. And so if you want to invite family and friends to that, that would be great. We'll get them in and out really quick. If you want to bring a snack that night as well, I'll remind you on week 11. If I don't, somebody in here, please remind me to remind you to bring a snack on week 12. And I'll be reminding you each week between now and then. And so that's week 12. Week 13 is week 13, 14, and 15, you'll be working on your final project. Okay? So just a few weeks away, you'll be working on your final project. And those weeks that you're working on your project, I will be here each session. You can come in and work, or you can stay home at work. The only session I need you to be here for sure is going to be week 15, so I can make sure and check off that you have everything you need for week 16 final presentation. Okay? So if you wanted to collect pictures at home, because I'll just tell you right now, because this is one of the questions students always ask, in my final project, are all the pictures have to be new pictures this semester? They do not have to be. And so they can be older pictures you've taken. And so we'll find out more about that when we get, I believe in week 13 is a week where you can look ahead if you want to, but you'll basically be selecting a profession in photography, from like sports photography, fashion, portrait, landscape, whatever, like 15 professions you'll choose from. And you can combine two of them if you want to. So like, it's common for students maybe want to do portrait and maybe landscape or something as an example. But you'll see a wide variety of them tonight, that when you get ready to leave, before you leave, we've got everything from portrait to we've got makeup artistry, where a student of ours was into makeup artistry, and he did nothing but before and after shots of makeup artistry. I'm talking about like horror film type artistry. And so he did before and after makeup artistry film. And then we have the one you're going to see tonight is a student who did his focused on pictures, speaking life, speaking stories. So every picture he took told a story in the person's face or what they were doing or whatever. And so a wide variety you'll see that are from here. Nature, a lot of students like nature. And so you'll choose something on week 13. That's why I wanted to kind of give you a sneak peek on what it is students have done in the past and let you watch a video, because you'll be creating a portfolio like up here, and then also you'll be creating a video both. The portfolio will have in it a one-page resume of just what your education is up to this point, bless you, what interest you have in photography, even though this might be your very first class, what your future interest is in photography, and then references like normal resumes have. So it's a normal resume that you could actually use after the class. And then besides a resume, you have 3 to 5 8x10 pictures that you've chosen that are going to be printed out at a print shop on a real nice glossy print. You'll have the thumbnails of all of your photos, the 5 that you print out, plus the normal amount on DVDs is everywhere from 30 to 50 photos on your DVD slideshow. So you'll include those 30 or 50 photos you'll have on your slideshow, plus the pictures you've printed out in thumbnail view. So you have your resume, your 3 to 5 8x10 photos, your thumbnail, and then a DVD will be in there as well. And I'll have all of those. You'll turn in the very last night that we meet together on week 16, present them up here to everybody. One by one, you'll present your DVD. I'll ask you, the PAT question I usually ask is, why do you choose this subject? And then if you had more time, what more would you want to do with your project? And there's been a lot of students that have taken this portfolio when they've left, and if they're really interested in photography, taking it to become an intern somewhere. Just say, here's what I've done, here's my work, and I would say 2 to 3 students a semester get an internship or a job that way, by just because it's a professional portfolio when you're finished with it. Granted, it's not, it's amateur professional, but still it's professional. You're just starting out, but it's your very first portfolio for some of you. And so employers are very impressed with that, because a lot of times when they get a student coming in, they just fill out the resume, even if it's at like a photo mart or whatever. They fill out the resume and that's all they've got. Well, they fill out the resume and give them one of these, you get the job. And so, I've had students get jobs at like a photo mart type place, to Rocket Register Star hires students every semester for photography. Also, downtown BMO Harris Bank has student photographers that they've opened up the doors for students that are interested in internship for photography. You get the nice little badge each event. I'm talking about, Carrie Underwood concerts, the big name concerts that come in. You can go to all those, take photos, and then they use your photos basically. It's theirs, but you get good practice at doing it. And so there's a lot of good opportunities if you're really interested in kind of pursuing photography as a career. This portfolio is for you. And then also, if you're not going to pursue it as a career, it's a good jumping point to keep doing photography, whether in your family, work, or whatever. And it's something you can always keep too. Now, the ones I have are students just let me have them each semester. They keep a duplicate copy usually and give me one, or some just say you can have it, and then I show them off to the subsequent semester, so you guys get to see what everybody's done. And so it's pretty impressive. One of the ladies upstairs that I turn this into every semester, after I get through grading them, I give it to Joan, and she's the one that you guys will go to after I grade them this semester to pick up your portfolios if you want to pick them up. But she looks through all of them, and she's into photography and does a lot of photography herself. She's always impressed with the caliber of photography that students in this class come out of. And just, it's amazing the work you guys will do. So you will amaze yourself, believe me. You will do a good job, and I look forward to seeing it. So that's coming up really quick. And so let's start with, if we could, the first one that's going to be the restore photos. Now, I know you didn't come prepared for this, so I just want to give you the steps here of how to do it. It's in week 9, and this is being recorded, by the way. It's in week 9, where it says send manipulation photos to Foki. And the steps are exactly what you need to do. Step 1, you'll go to RBC email or any other. You'll go to RBC email. You can't use Eagle for this one. It has to be an outside email you have to use, because you're going to have to attach a photo. You'll attach your 2 photos, the before and after. You will then make sure they're in JPEG if they're not already, which they more than likely are. You'll put in the subject line your first and last name. You'll send it to this email address, chuconplusrestore1@foki.com. That's a to address. And then after you successfully have sent it, you can click on this link, and it will send you to the session, or to the photo album. And that's from last semester. I'll click on ours because I still have that one linked to that. So let me go to ours. Right there. So it's blank right now, but this is where ours will be. But I'll go ahead and show you like one from last semester. We'll do the restore photos. Oh, you did? Okay, you probably sent them, because that was the instructions I had in there from last semester. So if you did send them in here, you can just resend them into the new one if you don't mind. That'd be great. Well, I'll go ahead and show you some examples of ones. Yours is in here. We can look at that one too. Is yours at the end, I'm guessing? This one here? Is that right? Okay, so here we got, this looks like the before. Okay, so let me blow it up a little bit. So we can see up close. Okay, there's before. And so a little faded out. Not too bad shape though, really.
No, it's faded.
And then here is the after. So you basically put some real color into it.
Yeah, my mom said her dress was light blue.
Oh, it's pretty light blue. It's
I
good.
had a real hard time getting the transition from her shoulder to the sky. It's clearer on the screen. But that's where I had the most problem with
Mm-hmm.
she wouldn't blend into the sky.
Well, I think that looks really good. Let me go back to the previous. Let's go up this way. So there's a previous. Now let's look at that's before. Now let's look at the after. Really good job. Excellent. How many hours did it take?
Maybe an hour or
I
two.
don't know. Okay.
I spent most of the time on the dress.
On the dress, okay. Well, you did a good job. And so if you could send that over to the new one, that would be great. But basically, you guys can, when you're finished, it'll look like this one here. It'll be populated with everybody's before and after picture of the class. And so, you know, some of these are old. Most of these are older photos that students usually pick, but it doesn't have to be. It can be, because in the tutorial you did, some of them were blemishes, so trying to find one here that most of these are before and after older photos. Like this is probably the most dramatic one from this semester here, that fall 2012. It had a line right down the middle of his face. It's like folded in a Bible or something. I can't remember. But that's common when you find old photos that around your house or grandma and grandpa give to you or pass down to you. This reminds me of a photo I did for my grandma and grandpa when I was going to graphic design school. My master's degree, I did a final project in there where I found out my grandma and grandpa, before they got married, didn't have a photo of them together. They never had one together, a photo, like a nice photo, like a dressed up photo. They had pictures of them together, but not, you know, nice dress up photo. So I found a photo. My mom gave me a photo of my grandpa and my grandma around the time, around that age that they got married. Anyway, I put it together in Photoshop, made a real nice, an 8x10 Photoshop of grandma and grandpa put together into one picture. And this guy looks a little bit feature-wise like grandpa, so this one reminds me of him a little bit. But that's a before, and this is pretty drastic, you know, fix. Let's see what happened here after. Pretty good. And I think that one took 5 or 6 hours to get that effect. And you can still see some of it when you blow it up, but pretty good job. And these restore photos can take a lot of time. The main tool you'll be using in restore photos is going to be like the copy tool in Photoshop or in Pixlr. Pixlr has a copy tool as well. The blur tool to blur together like issues here, where he did a copy tool on this and then blurred together. He said he probably should have blurred this together a little bit more on the nose area, but I thought this in the forehead looked really good. And then he got this down here pretty good. But what you can do also, that's a trick you can do with restored photos, is you can duplicate the layer of that original photo like 3 or 4 times. And every time you duplicate a layer, it gives more depth to the photo and more to work with on the photo. And so anyway, that's generally with restoring photos. You have the copy tool, the blur tool, and then duplicating layers. There's other tools you can definitely use, but those are the main ones used in restoring photos. And then you have that healing brush as well that's in Photoshop, and it's also in Pixlr as well. It works really well for blemishes and things of that nature. It'll get rid of them really easy using the blemish tool. Some of you did that blemish tutorial, I know, I saw those, and so blemish tools use a lot too, because even family and friends, or even when you go to the any photo portrait studio, they will have and can touch up photos for you and make them look nicer, skin tone, things of that nature, blemishes, get rid of that, which all the magazines on the magazine rack are all touched up, 100% of them are, so why not get yours touched up a little bit too? And so this whole lab was basically to help you kind of learn some of the tools that are out there. And those tutorials you guys did on the, I believe it was blemish, color, like a gloomy sky, and I think the other one was the avatar effect, the color, using the skin pigmentation and using the hue saturation. Hue saturation within a Pixlr and Photoshop both can change skin tone. It can also change hair color when you select just the hair or any portion of the picture. When you do hue saturation, it's going to change the tone of the color without changing the texture of the skin or the texture of whatever it is you're changing the color of. And so that's a really cool feature on that. And I know some of you had fun on the avatar as well. And so you will email, once you're through emailing, you guys will have a restore photos like fall 2012 of before and after. Any questions on that? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and fix that. That direct link is still going to fall 2012, so I'm going to fix that real quick while I'm in here. I mean, you guys can click away from it, but I might as well go ahead and fix it. So let's do this. I will give you, and we're going to look at these next week in class, and so let me just give you, just have them done between now and next Tuesday, the before and after sent to the email address so we can get that, look at that together in class next week. We'll look at everybody's together. There we go. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is we're going to cover the pano discussion. Okay, we're going to go over this document here on discussion, landscape, and panoramic. And in here I've got a couple links I'm going to show you. We're going to go over some handouts here on the overhead, and then a couple panoramic examples. I already have them open on my screen, but you guys can open on yours as always. So I'm going to do the landscape photography tips PDF, the Pano 2 PDF first, or those first two we'll look at, and then we'll look at the panoramic examples. And I also have a panoramic examples on my iPad I want us to look at as well after we're through with that. Okay, so most of your cameras today have a panoramic setting. What I mean by that is they've got a setting on there to where you can take panoramic pictures by just moving it to pano setting, and then starting at the left and going to the right, and you've got a panoramic picture, and it stitches them together, and they work pretty good. I've used them, and there's nothing wrong with it, but you're going to learn this semester how to do it the old-fashioned way, and taking the pictures individually, stitching them together with a stitching software. Photoshop has it built in, but I like the free tools. We're going to use a couple free online tools that work really well to stitch your photos together. And you basically need to take in succession from left to right a number of photos, and you need to make sure you'll learn some tips tonight. One is making sure your camera is steady all the way across, left to right, no up and down on the cameras as it's going across. The lighting has to be good, and that's about it. And try to think of a different shot, different way of looking at pictures before you take yours. So the first benefit of panoramic is maximizing the depth of field. That's what you want. Like in this picture here, where it really brings out the depth of this water with background mountains. Just adds depth to it. What really adds the depth to this one is those rocks here in the front. Adds depth to the entire photo. Without those rocks in the front, and even that one in the middle there, it wouldn't have as much depth to this photo. But by adding that foreground rock image, it really adds depth to that photo. So we're going to talk about first here some ways that you can maximize that. So there might be times it says here you'll want to get a little bit more creative and experiment with a narrow depth of field, like more linear, one-dimensional. The normal approach is to ensure that your scene is in focus at all time. The simplest way to do this is to have a small aperture setting or a large number. The smaller your aperture, the greater depth of field you're going to have in your shots. Okay? Do keep in mind that smaller aperture means less light hitting your image, so you're going to need a steady hand or a tripod for this case. Because the smaller aperture has less light hitting your image, any point in time, that will mean that you need to compensate either by increasing the ISO or lengthening your shutter speed or both. P.S. Of course, there's times when you can get some great results with very shallow depth of field. And this here talks about the shallow depth of field on this one here, on the landscape picture. Now, so it maximizes your depth of field of landscape. Second is tripod. Because you're going to have longer shutter speeds with a using the panoramic and using the apertures being at a smaller number, mean it's going to be open longer. You're going to use a tripod. The result is a longer shutter speed. You may select and compensate for smaller aperture. You will need to find and ensure your camera is completely still during the exposure time. In fact, even if are able to shoot at fast shutter speeds, the practice of using a tripod can be beneficial, especially in panoramics. I had a friend of mine through college that did a panoramic of the entire campus. It was like 6,500 pictures or something like that. Anyway, he had a tripod. This was back before all the fancy software that could do it. And he just did different spots all over campus, 360s. He did a 360, and then he also did a 180 from ground to sky all around campus. And then he brought it into Flash and individually stitched together those pictures. And what you would do is, when he was finished, you would basically show up at the front entrance of the campus, and then you had little dots that you could click on, like a door. You could click on a dot, and then you would go into the door, go into the door, and then the option to keep going down the hall or go into different, click on the doors to go into those rooms. And then when you got into the room, you could do a 360, and then you could also go up to the ceiling and down to the floor. He would put the camera right in the middle of each one of the rooms and do a 360. But he was telling me about it, and this was actually, I was just a novice photographer then, just starting out, and he was too, but he did a lot more than I did back then. And anyway, I asked him, I said, what was the trick to kind of getting everything looking? I noticed everything was on the same level, basically, on his photos. It wasn't like stair steps and stuff. He said he locked his tripod and never changed it. So, because it took weeks to do this, so it wasn't like he got it done in one day. So he locked the tripod to where it wouldn't go up or down, and then that way every morning when he got up to start again, the height was at the same level as was the day before. And so that was a trick he learned. And then I asked him, I said, could you have done it without the tripod? He said, yeah, but it would have looked terrible. It would look terrible with the tripod, without the tripod. And so tripods are inexpensive. So if you haven't purchased a tripod, I know that even if you're not going to take professional photography or go into anything beyond this class in photography, as far as career, it's always a good idea to have a tripod for portrait lab or portrait photos, panoramics like we're doing this week, landscape, and they are really inexpensive. So because of the longer shutter speeds on most of your landscape and most of your panoramics, it's good to have a tripod. Now it talks about here having a cable or wireless shutter release mechanism. Those are for high-end DSLRs. You do not need to worry about that. And what those basically are today is they have actually remote wireless shutters to where basically they set up the tripod, you can walk away and tell Johnny to smile and hit a button and it takes the pictures. So you don't have to be behind the camera basically. And so that's what that is. So tripod's number 2. Number 3, focal point. Now, all shots need to have some type of focal point to them, no different in landscape. In fact, landscape photographs without them would end up looking really empty and just a large area of nothing. And so you need to make sure and have some type of focal point you're looking at so the viewer's eye won't wander back and forth. And you'll notice most landscapes today that you and I see every day is in what format? Where do we see them at? When you're talking about panoramics. If we see any type of panoramic shot, a normal consumer, do we see it on TV? No. Do we see it here at school? No. Where do we see panoramics? Where do panoramics fit perfectly if we're going to see one? Yeah, but what type of media do we see them on, I guess? What was it? Some on the web. Yeah, you do see some on the web. We drive by them all the time. Billboards, there you go. One of the cool ones I've seen is Judson College, which is a beautiful campus. Anyway, they've got a billboard. It's the electronic billboard on Riverside and Forest Hills, that one over there by Hardee's, the new Hardee's. Anyway, their new ad campaign has, the background is a really beautiful shot of Judson College, the campus, and then it has a girl sitting like on the left side of it, kind of the left bottom left corner of the billboard, and that's it. And it has, I don't even remember what it says on it, but you remember though the beautiful, it's kind of golden, it's kind of a golden sunset picture of kind of a golden leaves on the ground type of thing, the one I remember seeing. And so it's just really, really powerful image. And so billboards fit well with panoramics. I don't think billboards use panoramics enough though. I see billboards that have a lot of stuff on them, which you can't even read half the time. And theirs was perfect. It was perfect because it was just, the background was perfect. The image of the student holding a book was perfect. I mean, it was just like, and you remember Judson, the name Judson in front of it. It wasn't a lot of stuff on it. And so that's the thing with billboards. You need to make sure they're not all junked up with text and, it should be very little text. But same thing with your panoramics. You want to make sure they're cleaned up. And what I mean by that is you have what's called a lot of white space. One of the terms I learned in graphic design school was the word white space, or the words white space. And what that means is using emptiness or using blank areas of design to make the user want more, if that makes sense. And so you don't want to show people everything in your panoramic, basically. You want to kind of make them wonder what's on the right of that panoramic, what's on the left of that panoramic, what's above that panoramic. You kind of want them like them wonder, man, this picture looks so cool. I wonder what was just to the right of that or to the left of that. And so you want to kind of make them wanting more is a good way to start with panoramics. And so the way you do that is with the focal point, like on this example here. I'll go back to, granted, this is the focal point the photographer's wanting to kind of show. It's got the beautiful, falls here, beautiful mountains. But this area here, even though it's a little bit larger real estate-wise on the picture, it really draws the image, the eyes of the user from this to, whoa, like that. You kind of notice, what's just those green rocks? And then you look beyond and like, whoa, that's pretty, that's nice. And so it's, you know, if you look at the difference too between this picture, there's another big word, dichotomy, between the picture, meaning you got ugly green slime, right, and this beautiful background of a waterfall. So you got kind of ugly versus beautiful. You know, the dichotomy of the picture is split. And that's good too to have in landscape and in portraits of panoramic, because it brings, you know, you have a contrast basically. It brings a contrast to the image. And so this most people probably see this first. I know I do when I see this, but then my eyes immediately go here, and you start here and you start looking, panning from left to right on the image. And so focal point's important to have. And with the focal point, talks about here, focal points can take many forms in landscape. It could range from a building, a structure, a tree, a boulder, a rock formation, a silhouette. Think not only what the focal point is, but where it's placed at. The rule of thirds is going to be useful, for sure. And another example here. Okay. Now, where's your eye normally, where does everybody's eye go to the first spot in this picture? How many said the flowers? Flowers first spot? And then where to go to right after that? Right into the mountain range. And you're like, whoa, those flowers are pretty awesome. And then you look back and you're like, whoa, I didn't see those. And so that's kind of what you want when you're looking at a panoramic. You want hidden stuff, hidden gem, hidden things in the picture that keeps people still looking. It's kind of like one of those pictures that you look at to see something in the picture. You ever seen those? Those pictures are kind of like, and I'm terrible at these pictures, by the way, where you look at them, you're like, okay, you have to look at it really close and you can't blink, and then you're supposed to see something. You know what I'm talking about? The picture that I don't know if I don't have the patience for it, but I have seen them a few times. But so that's what it is that it's wanting to do. It's not, except it's not hidden like the ones I'm talking about. You can actually see it, but it takes a few seconds for your eyes to notice it. And so next is foregrounds. The foreground, the rock one we looked at earlier, is a perfect example of foreground. And foreground basically is what sets apart one element on the landscape from the other. Could be a carefully placed foreground. So what sets apart a really great panoramic is the foreground. Like in that Judson one I mentioned, the student holding the book was a perfect foreground. She wasn't like right in the middle. She was like in the bottom left corner, and you know, she was smiling, I remember, and she was holding a book, but then your eye immediately went from her to the Judson campus. I mean, immediately. And so, but she was a perfect foreground to put in front of the background of Judson. And so foregrounds are real important. And it's one of the things too, I guess, you have to kind of look for. And you might even have to move things possibly, or move yourself to where you have foreground in front of that object. So if you're taking a picture of, say, a bridge going across the water, you might have to make it to where your tripod and your camera is maybe right behind a bush, you know, or a bunch of twigs on the side of a bank, to where that's kind of sets as a foreground, or rocks, and then beyond those rocks is the bridge. Okay, and so use those as the it gives it kind of a third dimension, really having that foreground. And you can do this with people too, like when we do the portrait. Like with kids, you can set a pillow in front of them, set them behind the pillow. It gives a depth to it. Another trick is getting like a wicker basket with blankets inside of it, and then setting the child inside the wicker basket, and then stepping back, and then that wicker basket serves as, and the blankets serve as the foreground, and then the kids in the background. It kind of gives it that third dimension. Having them play with any type of toy in front between you and the child, having them play with a toy. It gives them that third dimension by having that foreground. And you'll notice also when you've been in any family photos, the photographers generally doesn't line everybody up straight in a row. You generally have people, you're like, well, just because I'm taller, I go in the back. Well, that's true. It's natural. You're taller, you go in the back. But I've seen, my wife's shorter than I am, but there's times where I've been in the front, she's been in the back. I maybe went on one knee, right, and then she's stood up behind me, and I served as a foreground in the picture, and so foregrounds are real important. Does that make sense? What foregrounds are? And again, you just be creative. Use natural things around you. It doesn't have to be unnatural. Just natural objects, rocks, formations. The other one is sky. When it comes to panoramic, consider the sky. Another element to consider when you're taking a landscape. Most landscapes will either have a dominant foreground or sky. Unless you have one or the other, the shot can end up being fairly boring. If you have a bland, boring sky, don't let it dominate your shot and place a horizon in the upper third. However, you can make your foreground interesting in this case. However, if the sky is filled with drama, like dark clouds, formations, colors, like a red sunset maybe, then it can take up 2/3 of the shot, or the upper third of the shot. Consider enhancing the sky in post-production, which you've learned how to do. You can do hue saturation to add dimension to sky. So if it's maybe a boring sky, you can add dimension to it, add some tint to it. If there's clouds in there and you want to add a little bit of darkness in those clouds to bring some dimension, like say one of the pictures, I think in the example that you guys did for the manipulation one, was a highway with a normal looking sky, and then in post-production made the sky dark and gloomy, and it really lit up the road. It made the road look really cool, like kind of like a Batman, kind of a dark road. So consider enhancing it in post-production, and do not ever steer away from post-production and feel like it's a non-photo or it's a, not a true art or something, because every professional photographer does post-production in all of their photos post-production, whether it be cropping, whether it be adding light, luminous filters, any type of contrast or color. A lot of it's every photo is going to be post-production. So don't feel bad about doing that or like you're doing something wrong, because you're not. Granted, you want the best photo you can when you take it, but that's what software is for, and use it and make it better, make your photos better. So here's an example. There's the one I was thinking of actually, of the dark sky and the road. And I think this dark sky here, and this was, I don't think had any post-production done to it, but it was at sunset, and I think it just really brought out kind of made this road kind of just glow, I think, with that dark luminous sky. But say it was a lighter day or lighter clouds, you could do the same thing in post-production and add this colorization to it. And there's colorizing filters you can use in post-production that'll do that as well. And then lines, one of the questions you ask when you're taking a landscape is, how am I leading the eye of the viewer in this picture? Okay, so like the picture I've asked you about tonight, I asked you, where did your eye go to first? You want to ask yourself that question when you're looking at your picture, when you're looking at your panoramic. You're like, okay, where's people going to look at first? Where do I look at first? Kind of step back and look at it. You can just go like this and say, okay, let's start there and I'll work my way. Or I might start in the middle, go to the left, then go to the right. And so, wherever your eyes are, you want to remember that and make sure that you think of as a viewer that has never seen this picture before, never seen this photo before, how are they going to see it? And the best way to do it is don't put too much thought into it. When you go to wherever it is you want to take a panoramic at, just do one of these things. That's what I generally do. Just hold your hands out like this, and you just go, yeah. You just kind of real quick pan it from left to right, and take it. Don't think about it. The more you think about photos, especially panoramics, the more apt you are to change your mind and to go somewhere else. And you can always not use it. And so, but it's great to go ahead and set your shot. Then once you set your shot, get your tripod out and just take the 5, 6, 7 photos that you need to take. We'll talk about how to do that in just a second. But the lines in that picture is important. And so lines give a depth to it. And like a bridge, that's a no-brainer. It has the lines, right? You can see the lines in a bridge, lines in a railroad track. But where they might be a little bit more confusing is the lines in, let's say, I don't know, you're in a field. You're in a field and it's got mountains in the back, and maybe it's a rough terrain mountain, kind of like near Galena, Illinois or something. And you don't really see a lot of natural lines. They don't have to be natural. The lines don't have to be natural. A line can be like this, but it's a line. It can be, a line going up, left to right, right to left, whatever. It's some type of line that's followed in the image. It doesn't have to be a perfectly straight line. Also, capture movement. So when most people think of landscape, they think of something calm, serene, passive. However, landscapes are really completely still. And to convey this movement, adding drama, mood, and creating interest, you can do such things like letting the wind show in the picture, okay? Waves on a beach, flowing water. Now capturing these, like it says in the last paragraph, means you're going to have a longer shutter speed to capture that movement, because if the shutter speed's too fast, it's going to be a still shot and like a still motion, and you don't want that. So you have to make that shutter speed a little bit longer to capture the movement. Of course, this means more lighting, more light hitting your sensor, which also means a smaller aperture. And so either way, when you're doing movement, you're going to definitely need a tripod for this one, because when you have movement, you can have no movement on your camera at all. Weather, work with weather. A lot of times when we take a picture, we think the best time to take a picture is in the sunny daylight. And it really isn't. A lot of times it's best at inclement weather and bad weather and luminous weather coming out. And so not just the sunny days, but also the overcast days, the dark nights, which we have a lot in Rockford. Wind, we have a lot of that. And then, so it does create opportunities for photographers to maybe get photos around here that some photographers could never get in other areas. So look for storms, wind, dramatic clouds, sunsets that are, we have some really pretty awesome sunsets sometimes here. Even in bad weather, we have really cool sunsets. Early mornings are good in this area anyway as well. In the early morning when the dew is hitting, even in the winter time, you're going to have, a lot of people think dew is just in the summer, but you also have dew in the winter time as well. You have a mist in the morning. Usually we refer to it as fog probably, but it is a mist that covers things in the morning. And so things look different in the morning, early morning. What I mean by early, I mean between 6 and 8 in the morning, 6 and 7 in the morning. Things look different. The light hits things differently. And so look for it during those times. And then not only weather, but also golden hours. Chatted with one photographer recently who told that he never shoots during the day. He only shoots around dawn and dusk, because that's when the best light is, when the landscapes come alive. So for instance, I already mentioned Galena, Illinois. Beautiful place, hills, perfect time to take pictures early in the morning when the fog's in the valley of the mountains, or right when the sun's setting. when the mountains are setting, or the sun setting over some mountain regions, possibly in Galena. So the golden hours are good. Landscapes come alive. None of the least, which is the golden light that hits them. That's why they call it the golden hours. And the only reason it says I love the times is the angle of light and how it impacts the scene. It creates patterns, dimensions, and textures. So early morning, golden hours. And then horizons. It's an old tip, but a good one. Before you take a landscape, always consider the horizons on two fronts. Is it straight? While you can always straighten images in post-production, it's best to get it right the first time. And where is it compositionally? Compositional natural spot for horizon is 1/3 on the upper or lower. So 1/3 sky or 1/3 below on the ground. So it's either going to be the top third or the bottom one rather than the middle. So, of course, there's always rules to be broken, like in this here. You can basically have notice it's right in the middle of the picture, basically. So are going to be times where you break that rule, but that's okay. Now to get this picture here, photographer had to get literally right on the ground in between the yellow lines on the road to get that effect. And so, you know, whatever you have to do to get the effect, whether you have to get down low, up high, whatever. We've already talked about getting off the beaten path and things of that nature. So same deal here, which leads to the next one, which is number 11, changing your point of view. So you drive up to a scene, you get out of the car, you grab your camera, you walk up to the perimeter, raise your camera, rotate to left or right, take your shot before even thinking about it. We've all done it. However, it doesn't lead to a wow shot that many of us want to have. So you just take a little bit more time, find a little bit different spot that maybe nobody's going down, like you can see paths that maybe deer went down or other animals, getting into those areas and crouching down and taking a photo, maybe getting a shot you couldn't get before. Could mean getting down on the ground to shoot down low or up higher to shoot down from a different perspective. Just explore the environment around you, experiment with different points of view. Like with the panoramic this week, I suggest taking at least 3 different panoramic settings, all right, and then you'll choose one of the 3 from that. So that's the first one. The second article is on panoramic itself. We just left from landscape, now we're getting more panoramic. So why create a panoramic? So when you see before you a huge building like Chicago, New York, whatever, and it's eye-catching, and the lens cannot take it all in. You know, your lens can't take it all in. It's all, you have this much, and the building's this huge, this big, right? You just can't do it. What do you do? That's where panoramic comes in. Panoramic allows you to basically take in what the viewfinder can't. And so to resolve it, you just take several shots together and stitch them together. And this is how I propose doing it. Now I've done it before many times. Is you start out with your panoramic that you want to take. And we'll start here with, this is my scope from left to right that I'm looking at, and we'll say it might be a bridge going across a waterway, and then here's some water and some trees up to here, some trees, and then maybe there's some rock formations here. All right, so that's my panoramic. And now I've got to take my tripod, and I'm going to stand here, right here. Okay? And you want to keep that tripod right there. All right? And you want to make sure that tripod doesn't move up or down. And you want to make sure that the tripod is locked in position to where it doesn't go up or down. And not only vertically, but also here on the tripod, it generally has a lock here as well to lock it from going this way and pivoting. You can lock that as well. And so once you get it back further enough to where you can see the entire scope of your left to right panoramic, you'll then begin taking shots, pictures, in that region. Okay? And so here's what you're going to do. I'm going to get some different colors here. We'll do black and blue. Black is going to be one, blue is going to be the other. Okay, so I've got in here one, I'll just do the black here. We'll do the black with that. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I have 6 photos for that one, and you can actually, the rule is you want, technically these are a little too close together. You probably want about a 20% overlap, 25%. We'll say 20 to 25%. That gets a nice overlap on the photos. So if this is the end of this photo here, I want this one going over about 20%, 25%. So really, maybe something like that would be better. So you're overlapping each time you're taking a photo from left to right. And then once you're finished, however many photos you have, that's what you've got. I always take it usually at least twice, if not 3 times, do 3 passes of it. And so for your take home, you're going to do this. So you do at least 3 passes in one setting. Here's my bridge. I might look down the way and see another one. I'll take 3 passes of that and look at another one, take 3 passes of that. So I can end up with, 30 photos easy out of all. 30 photos usually a piece, maybe sometimes, depending on how many photos you take going across. And so this one would be, if I took 3, it'd be, 18 photos altogether. And so times 3. And so basically, once you get back and you stitch them together, you're not going to know what they're going to look like till they're all stitched together. And the way the stitching software works is it takes these photos that you just put together or just took, and here's what the stitching software is going to do to it when you bring it in. It'll take those photos and you'll bring them all in. It'll look kind of like this. Kind of like that. And at about 200%, you can actually see maybe sometimes some lines really lightly, possibly in some areas. But at 100%, you're not going to see them. And when you print them out, you definitely would see them. But what you do is basically, if there is any visible lines at 100%, meaning gaps, you kind of take, because they're all going to be layered together. So if I took 6 photos, I'm going to get 6 layers it'll create, okay? But those layers are not going to be really nice layers. They're going to be jaggedy like this, okay? And in fact, these lines I drew kind of really too straight. It more than likely is going to be kind of like that on the lines, kind of jaggedy on the lines there, okay? But what you basically do is once you might have to squeeze together some of these if not quite all the way, but 99.9% of the time it does it perfect the first time. And the reason it does it perfect is if you have the tripod straight, it's not moved, and you've done the overlapping thing from left to right, and you put at least 20-25% in each overlap, you're good to go. The software can see that. It can recognize that. The problem is when you don't do large enough a gap in between here. The gap's not, the overlap's not enough. Does that make sense? If the overlap's too close, you have problems. So once you get through, you basically just take a horizontal marquee tool, you go in and get that horizontal marquee tool and crop it, and you've got your panoramic photo. Okay. Do what? I generally do not flatten. I keep it in the layer format, just in case I need to go back later. But what you can do is keep two copies, like a layered copy, and then like a PNG copy of that, or a JPEG copy. I like PNG because it keeps a little bit better, looks a better quality picture if I'm going to save it for other uses, like for the web and stuff like that. And so, but you generally always keep the layered one. So keep both. And so because you can always go back and do whatever to it. Now, granted, you'll still have the original photos. If if you didn't keep the layered, you could do it all over again. But just so you don't have to do it all over again, I definitely recommend keeping the layer. So that's a basic approach how I do it. I want to just skip down. It mentions all this here. On the stitching software, let me show you here what I use, what I've used in here. We're going to do this next week, but I'll jump ahead a little bit to show you before we go to the examples. And you can play with it if you want to between now and next week. It's in week 10 macro lab, panoramic lab. Let's see, I've got a Dermander online app, ICE, which is a download app. That's the one that for Windows users, that one's really good, this ICE one. And most of you are Windows people, I think, Windows Home, Windows users, is that right? Okay, if you are, this ICE one works really well. But this online one works good as well. Works really great. And basically what it does is allows you to upload the pictures that you have. It does have an iPhone and iPad app as well. And basically once you upload the pictures, you have to create a login account. Once you upload the pictures, you basically, like it says here, you shoot them as normal, like here, 6, 7 pictures together. Then you upload the pictures, and then it creates a panoramic of those images. Here's one here. This was just, have not looked at this prior to class, the update here, but here's a panoramic image used with the software, pretty good. That was taken 6 days ago at Baja, California, so Mexico. And it's like they put it in like some type of video slideshow. Yeah, because this one will actually let you do this one will let you do not only an image only, but it'll actually convert it to a slideshow to where you can put it on a website. And they just updated that recently. And so this one lets you actually use your mouse, and you can, go wherever on that panoramic picture. So that's kind of cool. And that's totally free, doesn't cost anything to use. And you can post it to like Facebook and stuff like that when you're finished. So we'll be using that. But if you do have a Windows machine, I know this one works good for Windows users. Some students have told me they really like it. And then what we're basically going to do is once you've finished with your JPEG, we will crop it at 11 by 14, whatever the image is. We're going to make sure and crop it to 11 by 14 inches. And that's the image I'm going to get. And I've got an Epson printer at home, and I'm going to print those out for you and bring them back to class. And so I'll collect from you next Tuesday that saved JPEG, 11 by 14 crop JPEG, and you'll give that to me before you leave next week. Now, just so you know, when you're cropping these, you can probably guess, some of these are going to be quite long, so let's say this one is, we'll say this one is 72. We'll say this one's 72 inches wide right now. You're going to have to take that down to 11 by 14. And so 11 by 14 on this one, again, you're going to do 11 this way and go to 14 across. And so if this one's 28, 29, 30 inches, you're going to basically have to come and decide where you're going to crop your panoramic. You're probably not going to be able to use all of it for the printout. the reason for that is if you try to use all of it widthwise, it's going to be really small. Now, just so you know, we are going to be uploading these to Foki. You can upload a full version of yours in Foki and then order from Foki that image on a poster size image to come to your house. And I've done that before, and it takes about 2-3 days, up to 5 days, I think, and it's about $20, but it'll put that panoramic on a poster size media, which is really nice. And so I've had students do that. So you can definitely do that. Once you post on Foki, you can use it, because their prices are a little cheaper than other places I found out for larger pictures like that. And so you guys are more than welcome to do that on Foki's site. And I don't get anything from that. That's just, I do pay for the service, but I don't get anything from that. That's all theirs. But they do have pretty good prices. And so you'll notice also in here I have a mat board. I want you to bring the following week, which is going to be week 11, because you're going to take that 11 by 14 and mount it on a black mat board. So when you leave by week 11, when you come to class on week 11, I'll have those panoramics printed out, brought to class, and then I just need you guys to go by Michael's, and I actually have, hopefully this link still works. If it doesn't, I'll put a new one out there. They're pre-cut. When you go into Michael's, and you want to make sure you get the one I show here, and if it's not going to the right link, I'll make sure and put it on the right link, but it should be a pre-cut mat, and black is what I recommend. You can do white though as well. I think they have white one as well. White or black, either one will work. And I think they're around $5, something like that, for the panoramic or for the mat board. Internet's taking forever. I want to make sure and show this to you. You can look at it later, but see if it'll come up. Let's click on it again. Well, let's go in there and internet search slow. Anyway, I'll let that keep spinning. This link takes you to a website on Michael's that shows you exact one I'm talking about. Just make sure it is 11 by 14, and you can do black or white on that. That's fine. And that you basically would need to bring that not next week, but the week after. And I'll remind you again next week, because I'm going to be collecting these panels from you next Tuesday. Yeah. The whole parameter.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Because I went there today and I could find the one that was double
Mm-hmm.
in black.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, no, they have the red, white, and maybe blue.
Just flat. That should work fine though. Those will work fine too. But if this ever comes up, that's what I'm needing. It's 11 by 14, and you want to make sure, yeah, it's circumference, not inside 11 by 14, outside 11 by 14. And it's called the pre-cut, double pre-cut 11 by 14 mat board. And our internet starts slow, so you guys can look at that. I'll remind you again next week about that. But we're going to be doing that. Next week when you come to class, we'll finish up the panoramic. We'll do the cropping in here. We'll do the stitching like I showed you. We'll do the cropping. I'll collect your JPEGs. I'll bring that home, print it on my Epson 11 by 14, come back week 11, and we'll mat them on your mat board, and I'll show you how to use 3M spray glue, which I use a lot to mount pictures onto mat boards. And then that's really easy to use, the 3M spray glue, because if you mess something up on your placement on 3M spray glue, you can lift it up slightly and put it back down without ripping the paper. And so it works really well for art type of work. And so we'll be doing that next week though. So let's look at some examples, if we could, of some panoramics. To Let me see if I can blow it up this way. Too much. Let's go this way. There we go. Okay, so these are, let me get some lights here so we can see this a little bit better. And this is just some inspiration stuff for you. And then I want to come. Watch that DVD after this. And I'll just go through these real quick. We'll just kind of quickly look at them. This one's Mist Covering a Village. Underwater panoramic. This is fisheye panoramic using a fisheye lens. Panoramic de Orvieto. Mount Fort. That's a really wide one. And see how not really that tall. Just a plain room. Riverside in Cologne. A zoo. Mosque. Grand Canyon. Beijing Olympics. This was a time-lapse photo of the same runner from start to finish. This one has a house right there. Sunset. I like cityscapes personally. I like the cityscapes. I think they're cool. Even though I like nature, I think cityscapes look pretty cool. Good, really good cityscapes. This one's actually probably used a fisheye lens. Outdoors, indoor, a big plane, C5. Whew, that's huge. World War II memorial. This one here is pretty cool too. It's kind of foggy in the morning time. Kind of cars bumper to bumper going around that road. So there's one example. And I want to show you switch gears on my iPad. I'll show you those. Got some examples here. Just wanted you to see. Okay, this website I do not have this website on our course site, but it's a really good one. It's panoramicimages.com, all one word. Panoramicimages.com. If you want to jot that down, it's really good. Just a plethora of panoramics. It's been sitting there a while, so let's go back. I'm viewing this feature photographer one that's on the front page. Okay, let's start with this one now. High angle of an orchestra. So this was actually looking down panoramic wise, so different angle as we talked about in class. This one here is a botanical garden on the coast of Kahanu Garden. Very pretty. And notice a lot of foreground on that. See all the little foreground at the bottom there? And even that one at the top middle. Clouds over the sunset, sea sunset, a beautiful sunset. Big Island, Hawaii. Palm trees on a golf course on the seaside. These are all Hawaii photos. Beautiful. High angle of sea cliffs. Wow, a lot of color in that. Color's actually really coming out good on that, on the screen. This one here is a koa tree on a landscape. And we'll look at one more before we go to DVD. Again, this website's panoramicimages.com. A grand piano alone on a stage. Pretty cool. All right, pretty sweet, right? All right, so let's switch. I'm going to go now and show you the DVD. And then I want you to look at the final project portfolios up here before you leave tonight, just as a kind of inspiration to you. Which one it is? There it is. And again, he took photos. His theme was every photo tells a story, is what he was going for. There you go. So go ahead and spend the last few minutes. I'll go ahead and turn the lights on. Come on up and look at these portfolios. And you've got till Tuesday to take the panoramic photos, remember? And on the panoramic photos, I already went over how to do it. I would suggest at least 3 panoramic settings, and each setting taking at least 3 passes of each one of the settings. Make sure you use a tripod or a very steady hand, hopefully a tripod. You can do it without a tripod. Students have done it here without tripods. So any questions on the panoramic? Okay. And then by Tuesday as well, make sure you've turned in with that email address. And this week I give you the instructions on the restore photos before and after. Okay, do that between now and next Tuesday as well. So I know you got a lot to do between now and Tuesday to restore photos, sending that, the Pano photos. So go and come on up here before you leave and look at all of the portfolios, and I'll turn the light on for you. Okay? And you can take them down off the shelf there.
We bring the Pano photos next week and we stitch them here?
Yeah, we're going to stitch them here. Yep, we'll do them together.
Okay.
Yes.